Hi everyone, in this video we'll be going over how to use the multi-mapping feature on the quantum system, so let's get started. The application mapping feature allows you to connect your physical hardware devices to the hardware objects in your app. The most standard method is to map each physical hardware device to its corresponding hardware object in your application. However, what if you have multiple hardware devices that you want to perform the same action? The Quantum platform also has a multi-mapping feature available as a property on each hardware object. When enabled, it allows you to map multiple physical hardware components to just one hardware object in your application. To demonstrate this, I'll be using the Motor Servo Driver DIY kit that is connected to my Q server and then create a simple app to control the 4 motors and 8 servos. So here we are on my Q server. I have my Motor Servo Driver DIY kit client paired and set up. The firmware is already uploaded to it. As you can see here, we have the 8 servos and 4 motors uploaded to the builder base that is connected to the DIY kit. And for the application, I'll be using the Motor Servo Driver demo app that I used for the DIY kit video. I'll have the link to that video and the corresponding documentation in the video description below. I'll also be accessing this app by going to the Q server library. And then under the apps tab, I'm going to scroll down to the Motor Servo Driver and then click download. Once that app is installed, I'm going to the apps tab again. You can see the Motor Servo Driver is installed here. I'm going to go to edit, and here is the demo app. This app is nice if you want to control each motor individually using a series of interface objects here. However, what if you want to control all 4 of these motors or all 8 of these servos and have it perform the same action? Now, the one way you can do it is have one interface object and drag it and connect it to each port of each hardware object. However, it can be much simpler than that. I'm just going to delete these links. And now what I'm going to do is delete everything in this application except for the first motor hardware object, the first servo hardware object, and its corresponding interface objects here. And now, for this motor hardware object, I am going to turn on the multi-mapping feature here. It's in the properties. All you have to do is click the object, turn it on, and let's go ahead and just name this motors, and then click Save Properties. Then now let's go ahead and zoom in on this app a little bit more since we created some more space. And then we'll rename the interface object here, motors as well. Click Save Properties. Now let's do the same for the servo hardware object. We'll name it servos. We're going to turn on the multi-mapping feature and then click Save Properties. And then for the corresponding interface object, we'll name it servos as well. And then click Save Properties. And there we go. Just by using the multi-mapping feature for these hardware objects, we have greatly condensed our app from having 4 motor hardware objects and 8 servo ones into just 2 hardware objects and 2 corresponding interface objects in order to control 4 motors and 8 servos, since we want them to do the same action. So once you have created your app using the multi-mapping feature, click Save App, and then we're going to return to our apps. And then now let's go ahead and run the application. Now, since we have turned on the multi-mapping feature, this is the process that's going to be a little bit different than normal. So for the servos, what we need to do is add multiple clients that we want to map to this one servo hardware object. So since there are 8 servos on the DIY kit, I'm going to add 8 servos. You can see they're going all the way down to client 8. And then for this first client, I'm going to select the drop down and then click on the Servo 1 hardware on the Motor Servo Driver DIY kit builder base that I have created, and selected that. Now I'll do for client 2, Servo 2, client 3, Servo 3, and so forth. So I'll just fast forward through the rest of these. And there we go. Now we have mapped all 8 servos that I have connected to the builder base from the DIY kit. and then mapped it to the one servo hardware object in our application. And now I'll do the same for the motor hardware. So I'll add 4 clients, one for each motor on the kit. For client 1, I'll select motor 1, client 2, I'll select motor 2, client 3, I'll select motor 3, and client 4, I'll select motor 4. And there we go. Now our multi-mapping setup is complete. Let's go ahead and click save and run, and then I'll be controlling the DIY kit from our Quantum dashboard here. So there we go. Now our application's running. I'll go to the dashboard. I'll select the motor servo driver app. And then here you can see we have one control for all the motors and one control for all the servos. That's because we deleted all the extra interface objects and hardware objects, since we only want to control all the motors at the same time and all the servos at the same time and perform the same action. So to demonstrate that, let's go ahead and control the 4 motors first. I'll go ahead and move this one slider analog interface that's connected to the motors. I'll move in one direction, and then I'll move it back. And there we go. Now let's go ahead and control all 8 of the servos. So say I want it to be at a 180 degree position. There it is at 180 degrees, roughly. I didn't calibrate the servos. But then if I want to be 90, move them all to 90. Now say 30, move them to 30, and then now 0. So there you go. That's how you're able to multi-map hardware objects using the Quantum system. This is a great feature to use, especially when you have multiple hardware devices that are all going to perform the same action. For example, you can also have a bunch of different Philips Hue light bulbs in a single room that you want to trigger on and off. You can all multi-map those to one light hardware object in your application. This way, it's a lot more simpler to control and put together, and greatly reduces the amount of time you have to create an application for it. So I'm excited to see what you all build with the multi-mapping feature on the Quantum system. Be sure to share it with us. We'd love to see what you guys build. Be sure to check out the links in the video description below for more information on the topics we have discussed in this video. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.